Hi, everybody. It's April 2023, and it's Permaculture Speaker Series night. And today we're going to hear from Chloe here, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. And we'll probably go for about an hour, a little bit more than an hour. And Chloe can tell us if she's taking Q&As or whatever. She wants to let us know what we're doing today. All yours,
Sure.
Chloe.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Julie. And I really appreciate you having me on here with the Northwest Permaculture. Like I was saying to Julie, I went quite a few years ago to the Convergence, and I really love it. So my name's Chloe Bazada. I'm with Whole Systems Network. I'm the co-director and co-founder, along with my partner, Leonie Bryan. She's not able to make it tonight, unfortunately, but we've co-created not only our website and our brand together, but also our course, which I'll talk a little bit here and there about, and I'll be sharing a presentation tonight. So yes, I would love to take Q&A. I know it's always a hot subject, and I'd also like to take just to do a prompt. I'd like to know your name and what brings you here tonight. And I can model it so it's not super long, and then you can see how I do it so that you can do it as well. Sometimes people don't know exactly what to expect, so when they see me do it, it's a little bit easier. So I'm Chloe, and I'm here tonight because I'd like to talk about eco-villages. It's one of my favorite subjects, and I'm excited to meet all of you. And then you could just pass it to someone that you see. So I'll pass it to Tara Lynn.
Oh, I'm taken off of mute. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Tara, or Tara Lynn, and I can't usually attend Mondays, and I could this evening. So, and someday I would love to be in a eco village or a community setting. And so I wanted to sign on and join you all. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And just pass it on. Thanks, Tara.
Okay. Galen, pass it to Galen.
Hi, I'm Galen, excuse me, and I'm here because I'm very interested in the topic of how people respond to disasters and how those responses can be positive and actually lead to transformational change rather than just some kind of return to normal. And I will pass on to John.
There we go. I'm unmuting. Now I'm videoing. Hello, I'm John.
Hi.
I'm here in Eugene also, and we know we're going to have this big earthquake one of these days. Eugene has a great neighborhood association program, and we've been building out disaster preparedness and doing regular exercises now following the FEMA exercise and evaluation plan. So we're trying to merge people in neighborhoods with the whole incident command structure and doing two big, gigantic exercises. Spring is neighborhood wide, and then fall around the great shakeout is citywide. So we're learning a lot, and I'm really looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
And who has not spoken yet? Are there two Taras? There's a Tara Lynn and a Tara. Is that both Tara? Brad, have you spoken?
Before the intro. So is the other Tara you, or are you on two of them, Tara, or is that a different Tara? Okay, it's a different Tara. Yeah, okay. So I'm in Eugene, as somebody picked up earlier. I've got two projects that relate to this. I'm working on a something I'm calling resilient communities, which is to kind of create prototype, very small kind of eco-village, kind of self-reliant, sustainable, socially, psychologically healthy, healing kind of places. And so I'm working on that now. And then the other one is the community-driven recovery and transition. And if I got that right, Galen. And Galen's on the coordinating committee, and that's based kind of here, but and I'm on one of the housing kind of team looking at that. So we're looking at how to transition, how to use disaster as a transition point toward more sustainable systems.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think it
Oh,
relates. Oh,
yeah,
okay, so I
definitely.
pass it on to, well, let's try Tara, the other Tara, if you're there. And if not, let's try Patricia. No, oh, there you go, Patricia. Good.
Yeah, Patricia, I could tell you, welcome here. And right now we're just doing a very short round of intros, and you're just saying who you are and what brings you here tonight. Just brief.
Right. Well, Zoom brings me here. Actually, I'm seeing some old friends. Vicki, I met you for the first time down at the Women's Permaculture Convergence down in near Ashland, years back. Anyway, I'm in just outside of Tenino, Washington, which is south of Olympia. I've wanted to live in co-housing, eco-village, anything like that for probably 20 some years, and became a doomer about 10 years ago. So I've been trying to build a resilient, doomstead as
Awesome.
and I finally ended up giving up on Tacoma in 2019, moved down here, sold the Tacoma houses and everything, and then bought my current place March 25th of 2020, which
Wow.
is the day they locked down everything. Right.
Wow.
So
Well, thanks so much for your share, Patricia.
yeah, so
Nice to have
that's
you
I'm
here.
trying to turn it into a food forest, basically.
Wow, very cool.
Thank you.
So we have Vicki, Tara, and Jenna.
No.
Go.
No.
We can go with Tara if you're ready.
Looks like Keys might be ready.
Yes, well, I'll go next. My name
Oh
is
yeah, Keys, great.
Yeah, my name is Case, and I live in Port Townsend. I'm one of the co-founders of the Port Townsend Eco Village,
Amazing.
where we now have 30 adults and 10 children living on 7.5 acres. I also happen to be the chair of the City County Climate Action Committee. So I'm very concerned and involved in trying to figure out what to do about the climate crisis.
Mm.
And in Jefferson County, we have an excellent local 2020. We're essentially a transition town. And we have a very, very good emergency preparedness plan for the whole county in small groups and neighborhoods. So I feel very confident that we're on the right page, and I'll pass it on to Vicki.
Yeah, hi.
Nice to see you, Vicki.
Yeah, Case, it's really nice to see you. Yeah, I'm Vicki Robin. I live in Langley on Whidbey Island. I was involved in starting the Transition Town group here that lasted for about 3 years and then folded. And mostly I've been, I wrote a book about local food on Whidbey Island. Mostly I've been sort of poking around food and housing and climate issues, and trying to help increase capacity here.
Awesome. Thanks, Vicky, for being on.
Yeah. So Sheila?
Yeah, and just for the new people, there's a few new people on. We're just doing a quick intro. And so just who you are and what brings you here tonight, and try to keep it to a sentence or two.
That mean it's my turn?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sheila Rowe. I am the program manager at the Sustainable Building Science Technology program at South Seattle College. I am also really interested in sustainable building practices and sustainable life practices and all the stuff. So I just wanted to come in and check out and see what's going on with this group. So hi.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much, Sheila. I think we have Jenna next. Oh, you're still muted, Jenna. You can also just type in the chat. Thank you. Am I missing anyone?
Well, I didn't go, but we're giving Tara one last chance. My brief intro is I'm hosting this permaculture speaker series sponsored by Northwest Permaculture Convergence. I'm on the board and I'm here because I love community, and we definitely want to transition to a better way of living. So I'm looking forward to this topic myself.
Awesome.
Any chance, Tara, you want to come on, or you can type it in if you're not able to speak if you want.
All right. So I think we're going to get started. It was really great to hear from all of you. And just before I jump on, so like I said, I am the co-director of Whole Systems Network. We are an eco-village and community development organization. Me and my partner have graduated over 100 students with our Grounding Your Village course. It's an online course, and we just recently launched a self-paced version. So we're really excited to be able to scale so more people can join these types of calls. And we also offer group coaching with that. So it's been exciting. Before that, I was a part of the Global Eco Village Network, and that's actually how I met Maybe we can mute Tara. I think that it sounds like they're having tech difficulties. I think that's what it is. Sorry about that, Tara. If you want to type anything here, that would be great in the chat if you're able to hear us. So yes, before that, I served with the Global Eco Village Network, where I worked with actually a lot of elders within the Eco Village community. One of the, a few like Diana Leaf Christian, Linda Joseph, a lot of different names that are fleeting me as I'm talking. But yeah, I've worked with a lot, and that's also how I met my partner, who also grew up in an intentional community for 35 years from the age of 4. And so what we want to bring is something practical and tangible, and so that you can take it and work with it. We kind of relate it to a permaculture design course in that, you get to peer in and see what it is you want to learn, and then you'll take it from there. However, we like to make sure that there's a lot of tangible exercises and things that you're really getting out of it and able to share with a group of people. So, and the apocalypse piece is always a fun one, and I'm glad it's attracted so many people that are thinking about being prepared, because I think that's important. And that's kind of like the contrast that we want to bring sorry, my dog is very needy and is sitting on me, so I might have to put him out if he continues. But so that's the contrast that we really try to bring with the apocalypse and wanting to thrive, because how are you going to be able to, you know, survive past this point, right? And I think a lot of you alluded to that. It's like we have a lot that we're going to battle with, and even if we're able to band together, you know, this is a way better way to live. And there's so many resources within the permaculture and eco-village sphere, in like you named transition towns, city repair, all of those projects. There's so many resources that it not only creates well-being and longevity, it makes it more a stable way of life. So with that, I'm going to share my screen now. I've done this talk the past few weeks without a screen, so this is a nice refresh. Here we go. Right. Is everyone able to see it? Okay, great. So I've shared our story. That's a picture of us actually helping build an earthship in Mexico. So like I said, we've been involved with this for a long time, and this is some of the pictures of us working with the Global Eco Village Network and different organizations like that. And one of the pieces I like to share is I started my journey when I dropped out of college, and I knew that that wasn't the life that I wanted to live. It wasn't. When I realized how much was going on in the world, I decided, you know, like this is not how I want to spend my time in college. And so I found an intentional community 1,000 miles away up north in Montreal, Canada. And they were using hip words like eco-village and permaculture, and all of those things were really new to me at the time. And so I went to go visit them, and I, you know, as a 19-year-old, my eyes were, you know, really wide open, and I was really excited. However, I realized almost immediately of walking in that it was very unorganized, and they weren't even able to, you know, take me on or things like that. And so I did end up living with them because I was able to share and say, hey, you know, I think that this could be a lot more organized, and we can approach a lot of the assumptions you might have around creating a common vision, things like that. And so I'm sorry, I'm going to put my dog out. I'm really sorry about that.
I would appreciate actually if people would put into the chat, it's hard to find when she's screen sharing, but you can do it. Or when she stops screen sharing, if you could put how you heard, like if you got our newsletter or looked at our website or whatever, how you heard about this and how you ended up joining us. Sorry, Chloe, I forgot that was something I needed to ask people to put into the chat.
No, that's always really, really nice to hear. Great. So yeah, so I went up north and I visited this community, and I started realizing the gifts that I could bring to this space, although it was really beautiful and they were like a budding community. And, you know, I decided that this was something that I wanted to do more. So I went to go visit some other communities, and not the ones that were long-time communities. And I'm sure some of you being in the community sphere know like some really well-known communities, but the ones that were budding, or the smaller communities, you know, had a lot of issues around conflict resolution and just not being able to be on the same page and have alignment around vision, values, mission, or even if they were always not able to get to the next step or the next phase. And so, especially after I met my partner, we decided, you know, there are some commonalities that we can bring to the space. There's no need to keep to creating the wheel over and over. So that's when we decided to create this nonprofit and continue to do this work. So first, I want to share the benefits of creating community. And when I say community, I do want to broaden that scope. And what I mean by that is we can see how this can work on a city level, like we said, transition towns, and we can also see how this can happen in organizationally, like whether it's a cooperative or, you know, just a grassroots organization. And so I have worked with, you know, all of those different scales. And one of the biggest pieces is gaining equity. So oftentimes I'm seeing, especially on a piece of land, but even when you're working for a business, you're not able to share. Like when you do put all of your heart and soul into something, especially when you care about it, you're not able to gain back the equity around it, or you're not able at the end of the day to feel necessarily heard or as involved. So when you actually have a legal holding and there are very specific agreements around, you know, what happens when you put X amount of hours in, then you're able to make a big difference. And you're able to, even if you step out of that organization or that community at a later date, you're still able to feel like you've had an exchange, right? And so that piece is really huge. Voting and decisions, this is something that I personally really appreciate, especially studying governance models. The more that you're able to, again, have a piece of that equity or something that represents you on a legal level, or at least on an agreement level, you're able to create or have decisions that everyone is able to be a part of, not just certain hierarchy. And that, you know, in hierarchy, you often are heard, but it doesn't have the same impact. Or some people are often left out based on, you know, different reasons. It could be because of marginalization, or it could just be just the hierarchical system, especially on a community level. When there's not agreements, there, you know, what's things called a community, but then there's like what I like to call, and we'll talk about it later, the benevolent dictator. So there's people that own the land, and then there's the people that work on the land. So we'll get into that in a little while. So co-owning resources, that is huge. And what I'd like to say around that is that it really opens doors to possibilities that you don't think are imaginable otherwise. One of the people that's on our course, some of you actually may know his name, is Yona Mesritz, and he has $2 million communities that he helped start. One is Emerald Village in San Diego, and the other one, I actually don't know the name. It's in Oregon, and it was started the last year and a half, 2 years. Anyways, he has inspired me immensely around what's possible when you have a group of people, and especially like thinking more in the investor mindset. So anywhere from owning land with a group of people to owning a tractor or renting a huge facility. There's so many possibilities that can happen when you co-own resources and have clear agreements. So lastly, having a trusting and supportive network is, for me, that's one of the most important things, because, you know, coming home after a long day, it's nice to know that there's like-minded people. When there is calamity and chaos in the world, it's nice to know that you can agree with some people, and that you feel, you know, they can watch your kids, they can garden with you, and you're just really getting your needs met by this group of people. So we won't go over this in too much detail, but I always like to paint the picture of different community projects that have formed. I am not directly involved with all of these, but I do know people that have been directly involved in these. Biosphere 2 was created by the intentional community called Synergia Ranch in the 90s. I'm actually the eco coordinator of their book press, their book publishing unit. So that's a full circle, but I did live with that community about 7 years ago. And they created this beautiful project. And what I find really inspiring is, a group of people that have the same vision are able to be motivated to create something so large and beautiful like the Biosphere 2. Domenhure, I don't know if anyone knows of Domenhure, but it's a very well-known eco-village. It's one of the largest in the world. There's over 1,000 people that live there. And they actually started by digging temples underground with spoons because they didn't want the Italian government to know what they're doing. Now, that was in the 90s as well. So they do now have the government know what they're doing. And in fact, they don't have their own currency system that can be then exchanged into euros, etc. So it's also a really cool model to check out. Then there's an Earthship community in Denmark. I actually visited them when I was taking my Eco Village design course, and it's really phenomenal. The people that created this also created the transition town in Denmark. So I definitely highly recommend if you're ever in Europe to go check that out and talk about something that's really self-sufficient and resilient. This community has that. It's a cool model. Another one is, well, I didn't put the actual community here. I think I have another picture later on. This is the one that my partner's involved with that she grew up. That's their business. It's Cheops. It grosses a few $1 million a year. And all of the community members, 100+ community members, are all employed by Cheops or a branching business. And lastly, Tamara is another really well-known one. What's really inspiring about this community for me is that it's in Portugal in a really dry and arid region. They were able to totally transform it and have abundant water sources there. They're also very known for human connection and things like that, but that's a whole nother conversation. But definitely check them out if you're interested in conflict resolution or different modalities of sharing. So there's a lot of really amazing things. I hope that I inspired you to live in community or to be a part of community. It seems like a lot of you are already inspired for that. However, I wanted to share the problems with living in community as well, because there's a lot that you're able to do. However, I want you to be able to do this with the best of your knowledge and step forward, creating something. So first of all, you may have heard this before, but only 10% of forming communities succeed. So, that's in a span of 2 years. And you have a lot up against you. How many people here have been in hours of confusing meetings without containers? We can't really, it's not as interactive, but yeah, I'm sure that a lot of you have been. And in that, yeah, awesome, Vicky, thanks. The loudest in the meetings win. And so both of these, what I'm getting at is that there's not really a great container when these meetings are had and you think you're going in having a clear vision or having a clear understanding of what the meeting's about. And then oftentimes it's hijacked by someone who might have an emotional attachment or someone who is talking over the group. And so that can get really complicated. And what we're really trying to get at here is that the more clear agreements you have, the more that this can, and even facilitation modalities, things like that, the more that you're able to step out of that. One owner promising to be the benevolent dictator. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite subjects. What I'm really saying here is I like to share the power versus responsibility scale. And so the power dynamic is maybe one person owns the property and they ask other people to come to the property, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're expecting the people that are living there to contribute, but then they're telling them what to do. And I understand that that is something that may feel necessary at certain points, but if the ownership or the power dynamic is more split equally, then other people who are living on the property are actually able to not only feel like they're contributing more, but feel more responsible to what's going on and be a longer time, be more committed to the project that they're in. And so often also what you're seeing is the opposite, which is that one owner, the benevolent dictator, they might have a lot of power, but then they also have all of the responsibility and they reach a level of burnout. So I understand both sides. I understand that if you already own a piece of property or it's been in your family for generations, you don't actually want to, you know, change things just because new people are there. However, it's really important to understand that if you're able to find a model where people are able to buy in over time, it gains more trust with that within the whole group, and it keeps people there on a longer term basis. Lastly, children and values. So values is something that we talk about a lot in the course and in our work. But it definitely becomes more magnified when you have children in the picture. And so if you're not able to talk about in advance what the value system could be, and you don't define, like you might talk about, oh, we want to be vegan, or we want to be permaculturalist, or we want to be resilient, things like that. And you don't define what that is, and then you bring your kids into it, you know, a lot can happen. And the story I like to tell is I have been involved with communities where they were, you know, wanting to be on the land and live off the land and feel more resilient. And but one of the families was actually vegan, and the other ones were more into like the survivalists and wanting to do more like hunting and things like that. Well, when you actually, maybe on your own, you might reach some type of consensus, but when you have kids, you know, what I've seen is one kid is talking about, you know, like having a gun and like pretending to shoot it at the other kids, and then the parents are getting really upset by that, and so it just creates like an interesting dynamic there. So all of this is of what I've been talking about brings me to the number one issue, and that's really having an unclarity around common vision, values, and set agreements. So, you know, I can't emphasize this enough. The more that you're able to talk about that common vision and values, then you're able to have a stronger foundation of which to work from. So this is the 4 pillars of a successful community. And like I've said, it's really has to do with community agreements, making sure that you're clear about membership models, ownership models, and decision-making and governance. So again, there's a lot of different modalities. Consensus is one of them. Sociocracy is another one, and we do actually teach a lot about sociocracy. And what's really important is making sure that there's a clear structure, and you don't necessarily know what governance system you're going to use right away, but making sure that you get to something where everyone feels heard and they feel responsible is important there. Shared vision and values, we've talked about that a lot. And then thriving collective businesses. See something. So with the thriving collective business, what I'm really trying to get at is that on a longer term level, if you are having a community on a piece of land, to be able to start a business model, I think will keep people longer term on the property. And I know that's kind of an ideal perspective. However, if you're able to make it a business last, within 10 years, those people can grow immensely. And like I said, at La Cité, where my partner was involved with Keops in the earlier slide, seeing a business that's a few $1 million grossing, they're also helping their local economy and making, a big impact, not only for the community itself, but the larger whole. All right. So. The last 20 minutes, I'm going to stop my share now. The last 20 minutes, I'd love to talk more about some questions that are coming up for you.
I will say, most communities that I knew about, and this was probably a couple of decades ago, really, in the early days, they had income from outside the community. It's true for farmers, I know now too. It's very difficult to create a business like that. And I was just wondering, has that evolved? Are communities now more able to create collaborative businesses that actually support the people in the community?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And I would say I've seen both models work. And like I said, it's something that we see happening on a more like long-term spectrum. And that's why we advise that that's able to happen over time. La Cité did it really well, and Twin Oaks is another one I've seen that does it really well. Dancing Rabbit. I don't know if any of those ring a bell, or even The Farm. And it doesn't mean that all of those people are living in the community full time or working in the community full time. However, having at least a few thriving businesses really keeps for that longevity piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have a question about founders syndrome.
Sure.
My wife and I started the Port Townsend Eco Village. We purchased 7.5 acres, and during the first 10 years of our Eco Village existence, we gradually sold off parts of it, either to individuals or to the association itself, which then put us more at a level of equity, at least financially, with other people in the Eco Village.
Great.
The issue that I sort of struggle, I mean, there are two parts of this. One is my own sort of letting go as a founder, but the other is one of other people's perception. and other people's not resentment. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to say it. Some people either deferring to me because I've been here longer and I'm the founder, or still not feeling quite equal. And obviously, I've got more historical information than anyone else at the Eco Village. And yeah, so, and I had actually heard from someone, and I can't recall who it was, that a founder really cannot stay and continue to live in the Eco Village or in the community that they found,
Oh,
that
interesting.
they set up. And so I'm going, okay, does that mean I really have to move? I don't really want to. And I'm wondering what your experience is with founders who continue to try to live in the communities they start.
I think that's a really great point. I would say that there are definitely phases of community, and I was trying to explain this to another group. Like, the founding group of people do have a natural different tendency than the people coming in after, right? And I'm sure, Case, you understand that. It's like the people that are founding a community is because they might be better organizing, they just might be more charismatic, they might just understand all of the pieces and how they come together. And it's not that the other people don't, it's just that for whatever reason, they don't have either the energy or the time or interest in creating that system. And so they want to move into a system that's already been founded. And I don't, I think both ways are great. I myself am more on the first, but I have, I think another piece on that note is founders that then have children, and how do you keep that intergenerational piece, or even visiting communities where there's mostly elders now in the community, and then the younger people are joining, although they might have, I think there's definitely complex around younger people being like, oh, I'm here, listen to me. So there's that. But then at the same time, the elders who have worked so hard into creating something, it's hard for them to let it go. So I'm not necessarily answering your question directly. I am saying, like, I have seen this in a few different ways. And the question to you then, Case, is, and you don't have to answer this. I don't know how sensitive it is, but how much are you able to let go in order to let other people take on? And I think that's a big piece. And if they're asking you questions, are you able to say, I don't know, what do you think? And maybe, it depends on the structure or the situation. And, I think that's just kind of some more reflective questions. But if you have answers to that, that's great.
Well, I could just comment briefly. I think one of the bigger issues that we have, and you brought this up earlier in terms of equity, is that we, at one point, 1/3 of the members here were renters, not owners.
Right.
And that has created a tremendous amount of strife, and we're cutting back on the number of renters. But to answer your other question, I'm retired. I don't have to work. There are many people in our community who do have to work. And so I find myself sort of jumping in to help. I'm on more committees or circles and subcircles than anyone else, just because I have the time and the interest and the inclination,
Sure.
We've got 10 kids here, so other people are busy raising their kids or just trying to make ends meet.
Right.
But I appreciate your comment, and it's something that I do need to continue to think about. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Case. Also, I just saw here, Patricia, I was actually quoting her a bit, so I'm glad that you picked up on that. Thank you. I am pretty sure I own her Truth or Dare book. Not that specific one. Yeah. I saw Galen and then Brad, and then I also saw John's question. So Galen.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. So just circling back to the issue about businesses and the challenge of having businesses. It seems to me that this is an issue because the community is interfacing through the business with the larger economy as a whole, which is an economy that doesn't have values that are aligned with the communities in any way, for the most part. And that also kind of speaks to the issue of these communities as an anomaly within a much larger dominant system.
Sure.
Going back to the zombie apocalypse theme, in imagining what if these communities were actually the primary mode of social organization, because what's currently the dominant system was broken down. Or maybe even without a zombie apocalypse, how do we help that transition to community living becoming more of a dominant mode of organization? And I'll just stop my kind of comment question by saying that Brad and I had a long car ride discussion about how to perhaps bring people together who were interested in community for like a 2 or 3 week intensive camp.
Oh, yeah, I thought about that.
Where they'd be presented with, okay, we need to decide our values, we need to decide on our way we're going to communicate what our agreements are, and then we're going to spend 2 weeks intensively with maybe some facilitation living that way, and then process all that. So
right. Yeah, no, I love that. And actually, Robert Gilman is one of the other elders I've worked with. He actually is in the West Coast. He termed the word eco-village in the 90s. And so I was able to talk to him about this. And he said, I don't see eco-villages being the end all be all. And of course I was shocked hearing that, like, what? And he said, no, it's an experimental hub. And so you're supposed to take that and bring it back into society. So yeah, I would say the more we can experiment, the more that we can bring the initiatives that we're learning about here. And yes, in my ideal world, eco-villages rule the world. No, I don't think that's actually how it's going to be. Maybe more transition town style, things like that. But that's for sure that we're going to have to go back more to the basics and more local economy, whether society wants to or not, I think. So to go back to your more initial thought, one of the ideas I've had previous is that, and I've seen it work again with Twin Oaks because I spent a good amount of time there. That's in Virginia for people that don't know. Is that they're able to grow enough food, for instance, and just well, they don't actually grow that much food, but they have food on site that they sell a bit. Then they have like hammocks and tofu, and those are their other main sources of income. And so I see how much that they've impacted their local city. And so what I've imagined from there is that if we're able to create these communities that have such a cyclical relationship with their local townships, then that is a way that they're able to support a larger whole without necessarily saying, hey, everyone in Charleston, come live on our property. And, I think Twin Oaks has also inspired other communities around to form. They definitely have. And there's a lot of different types in that space. So I think that is there's many ideas. I've worked with a lot of different models. I've heard so many different models, from Airbnb eco villages to crypto systems, right? And everyone thinks they're unique, coming to me and then telling me their model. I'm like, okay, cool. Let me see you do it. So, I know we don't necessarily have an answer to this, but I do see how we can impact our local systems if we set up our community to do so. Great, thanks, Brad.
Hey, so yeah, my kind of comment question I want to put out somewhat relates to what we've been talking about. I've been studying, learning about intentional community my whole adult life. The last 4 years, I've, started something down in Santa Barbara, and then I lived at a quote unquote eco village outside of Eugene that teaches it and doesn't practice it. And I learned a tremendous amount. And my attitude is to really push back on the idea of no hierarchy. I think that there's natural hierarchies, and that there's varying levels of competence and maturity and integrity and things like that. And so that, my own quote unquote model is, pull together a very small group. Some of the people might not even live in the first communities, but, a small group that will collectively, collaboratively kind of create the model, but not that everybody that comes in has equal say from the beginning, because I saw what a disaster, an absolute disaster. I mean, I'll say the name because I think shouldn't be hidden. At Lost Valley, people are getting poisoned, arsenic poisoning, because of absolute gross negligence over many years by the people in charge, and the whole community kind of in it together, and other things like that. A lot of exploitation, people getting kicked out, and even myself, I was outspoken and stood up, and knowing that I'd seen the pattern, and that if people didn't stand up with me, I wouldn't be wanted there anymore. And, that was the case. But I knew that, and I didn't want to be there. So my point being that, a structure and processes that, that favor integrity, character, competence, experience, and give people that don't necessarily arrive with all of that the opportunity to grow. Just like in traditional societies, you didn't, go from being a 15-year-old, went through your rites of passage, and being an elder, and having a say. You went through a process of growth in any organization. So I think we need to be a lot more practical and less dogmatic about quote unquote hierarchy. And I'm laying this out to really look for other people's perspectives, experiences. Of course, Chloe and anybody else here on this kind of a question, because I think it's the people part is the critical aspect of whether, well, there's no argument probably with that the critical component is the people and how it works together. Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump in, but I would like to hear other people's experience. This is not my topic, I've studied with a lot of other people, and it's just my passion. So yeah, I don't necessarily recognize that I have all the answers, and I like the way that you said it around the rites of passage to elders. And I do think that this is a very old concept, but a renewed concept at the same time. So I don't know if I can necessarily answer what you're saying, but I think that what I'd like to share is a little bit around sociocracy, because that's also someone else's kind of question and relates well with one of the newer concepts that people are bringing in. And Patricia, I saw your hand, so we will get to you. So in sociocracy, I think that they've done a really great job. It was based initially on consensus, and they realized like, well, consensus on its own, especially if it's very big groups of people, it's not working out. People are getting really burnt out sitting in a room hearing each other talk. And so, you know, I have heard other success methods, but I like the way that it does create accountability and it disperses power so that other people can take ownership of certain areas and certain topics. So again, I know that this is kind of far off from what you're saying, Brad, but I like systems. And I think that it makes a lot of sense in being able to start with systems, because I do think we need to reteach ourselves how to do it. And then once we get into more of a habitual way of actually being able to listen to people and trust people, then we can maybe ease off those systems. John, I didn't fully answer what sociocracy is. So what I'll say is that there's a general circle, and that could be how you define it. However, the general circle is usually the whole meeting space, and then there are smaller circles around it. So the general membership, and then you can have it's based on the priorities that your community has. So it could be homeschooling group, it could be gardening, it could be outreach and events, it could be financial. The opportunities are really endless, but the important piece is that there is hubs for each, and that there are kind of rules, if you will, like you can make X, Y, and Z decisions around what this hub can do. And so they have full autonomy, but if they, for instance, spend more than $5,000 on the greenhouse or whatever project, then they have to bring it back to the general meeting. And so it's a lot more complex than that. So I'm gonna leave it there, but it's a way that people can get done really efficiently and then bring it in the main space. There's also ways in which it kind of is like consensus, if you're a bit familiar, where you can object, but they make it easier to not object because there's a lot more review and feedback processes. And so it's really interesting. And I've learned the most from sociocracy. Well, a few different ways. I've worked with it a bit with the Global Eco Village Network and Valhalla Movement, the other community I was in, but also Diana Leaf Christian teaches it on our course and just in general, and she is phenomenal. So I'll leave it there. Patricia.
Yeah, a couple of things have popped up for me. One thing, Brad, when you talked about hierarchy, what clicks with me anytime I hear hierarchy is the work that Rianne Eisler has done. I read her stuff, early on. I think Chalice and the Blade was probably the first one. But what I loved about her was she talked about two forms of hierarchy. One is vertical, and that's the hierarchy of domination. That's what we live in now. But she also talked about a horizontal hierarchy of actualization, which she talks about is back in the early clan years, times when we had matrilineal societies and such, that it was more like that. So the hierarchy existed because you need a structure, but the idea of it was to find out what each person needs and bring that out, which is a totally different way of approaching it. And the other piece of that is one of the things that Starhawk talks about a lot is people talk about anarchy as being, oh, we're leaderless, but she says, no, you're leaderful. So you're all leaders in your own little places. So this is also the hierarchy of actualization. You know, if I'm the clan mother, but I know that this person over here knows a whole lot more about something else, I'm going to let that person lead that because they can do a much better job than I can.
Mhm.
And so it's you have to have a certain humility to live this way, but it's recognizing everyone's strengths and weaknesses and playing to the strengths and helping them deal with the weaknesses. You know, it's judgmental and I don't like that, but you empower each person. I mean, even the little kids, what's this kid good at? And then you give them a little piece of power, right? You empower everybody. Okay, you get to take care of all the trash, right? You get to take it. You don't have to do it all, but you make sure it gets done. So they learn how to delegate also. So it's just a way of bringing everybody on board and still having a structure so things can move forward. So those are the two things that came up for me.
Awesome. That's for sure. Thank you, Patricia. I really liked that. And I think it's a little bit of also I was saying about power versus responsibility, which is another thing that Starhawk has taught me as well. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Case, we have you, and I think that's going to be it.
Yes,
for tonight.
I really appreciate Brad's comments and concerns. Let me say that sociocracy deals with that in two other ways as well. If I want to join the resource circle, which manages the facilities around here, I have to actually apply to the resource circle and be approved by them to join. And so if I haven't demonstrated my capacity to be of service, to help, to know anything that would be useful, my application would be denied. And then there are also additional situations in which when we need a certain group of people to do something, there's actually a community-wide election that happens. And again, you know, it's like there are certain criteria. This is what the person needs to be able to do. And then we have an open discussion of whether or not a person who wants to be in that group actually qualifies. So I think sociocracy is a marvelous way to deal with the issue that you're talking about.
Awesome,
and
thank you, Case.
And I would recommend the book by Sociocracy for All.
Oh, great.
One Song, Many Voices, or something like that. And it's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciated everyone's input. And I did see, Sheila, your question. My Eco Village course I took was about 6 years ago. That was the one that was in Denmark, like I was saying. I don't remember the name. It's like, if you look up Eco Village Design course or Eco Village Design Education, which is why it's EDE. I will say that I really appreciate those models. It's about 5 weeks, so it's a long time. There is ones online, which of course are more dry than going in person, but you do get a lot out of it. However, I do not want to put this down, but I will say that the reason that we created our course is because we found that those courses were about the new world or the new society, and they were like very idealistic. And so even in 5 weeks time, you're not walking away knowing how to do it. You're learning about what's out there and maybe some tools. So yes, if you're really into it and you really want to go, I would say go for it, but definitely check out some other, things, and also make sure you're really looking into maybe reviews or other aspects, because although there is like a really good criteria that the teachers need to meet with the subjects at hand, I think the organization has been off in not only our class, but in other people that are like my peers within the Eco Village network. So before you spend lots of money and time doing something like that, just look into it more. All right, well, thank you all for your time. And again, Julie, thank you so much for hosting me. And if you want to or if you're even curious and want to be on a newsletter, go to groundingyourvillage.com, and the first thing that will pop up is the pop-up. And so just fill out your name and email, and you'll be put on a newsletter list.
That was Grounding Your Village?
Yes, yeah, I put it here
Yeah.
in the chat, but groundingyourvillage.com.
Great.
Great. Thank you very much.
And we
Yeah,
have,
thank you. It was nice to meet everybody.
We have a pitch, Chloe,
Okay.
I'll remind you about a book signing.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Julie. I'm so glad I shared it. Okay, so Hazel, who is our next speaker, is someone that I am the marketing coordinator for, as I was saying before. And they are also local. They're in the Berkeley, well, they're going into the Berkeley area, San Francisco area this week. It's a full week for them. And one of the things that they're doing is a book signing at Ecology Center. So if we have a second, I'd like to pull it up actually and just share that in the chat as well. But it's with the panel with Starhawk. Speaking of, I was able to interview both of them on the subjects of eco-grief and stewardship. So it's a recorded panel and a book signing. And you know, it's going to be a great time if you're in that area or know someone who's in that area.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right.
Backwards, but
There.
this is Hazel.
What?
Yes.
Patricia, you're amazing. You're on it. It's not even supposed to be out yet.
Oh, no, they mailed it. I got it a couple
No, I know, but yeah, it's actually coming out the
Starhawk
26th.
was pushing it, so I said okie dokie.
Yay.
What is Hazel's last name?
Bard. They used to go by Tom Ward, so that might be more familiar.
Yeah, Tommy
Yeah.
Hazel Bard.
Exactly. Yeah.
He'll be our speaker in May,
Yeah.
here,
That's right.
the last week of the month of May.
Awesome.
So thank you, everybody. You really all contributed to a really interesting conversation. And we will get this up on YouTube and on the website, also on the speaker page.
All right, great.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
Thank you.
hosting.
Thank you all.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Take care. Good night.
And if you know of anyone you want to speak, let us know. Go to the speaker page. Good night, everyone.